Hey, good afternoon to you. 406 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up today on the program, economist Steve Moore will be here at 5 o'clock. A lot to discuss with him. He's got a brand new book called The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again. That's timely. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Kamala Harris is on her media tour right now, finally doing a couple of interviews, mostly with friendlies, almost entirely, actually. And she was on The View today, and she was essentially recording Trump campaign ads. Listen to this.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
There is not a thing that comes to mind. She's 100% lined up with Joe Biden. Joining me now is Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. She represents New York's 21st Congressional District, and she's the House Republican Conference Chair as well. Congresswoman, great to have you back with us.
Good to be with you, Vince.
So what kind of record does Kamala own if she's 100% aligned with Joe Biden?
Well, this is what we've been saying all along, is she owns Joe Biden's record, lock, stock, and barrel. Let's start with the border crisis. She is Joe Biden's open border czar, and we've seen the catastrophe that is no matter what state or community you go to across the country. When it comes to the historic inflation, Biden-inflation, it's a result of Kamala Harris's deciding vote for the Inflation Expansion Act. So as the American people are seeing, as Kamala finally does these, what I consider really softball media interviews, she owns this, and it's going to be a continuation of the failed policies, but worse if she's elected for the next 4 years. So the American people are waking up, and there is a reason why her campaign has tried to hide her from doing these interviews, because she's the candidate the more you hear from, the less support she has from voters.
Yeah, let me talk about the immigration side of things for a moment. She just did this interview with 60 Minutes, and Bill Whitaker raised appropriately that illegals have been pouring into our country at record rates under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Here's what that sounded like.
There was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem, and solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem.
Yeah, so she just keeps rambling. But even Bill Whitaker can figure out here, Congresswoman, that things definitely change under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Well, he's exactly right, and you heard a non-answer, as is typical from Kamala Harris. They don't want any accountability, and this happened on their watch. On day one, Joe Biden issued 94 executive actions opening the border and wiping away President Trump's effective border security policy. And Bill Whitaker talked about the 4 times increase in illegal crossings. In my district, I represent the Swanton sector. There have been more illegal crossings in 2024 than the last 17 years combined, a 50 times increase in illegal crossings. So this is a catastrophe. I was just meeting with communities and constituents in my district who the first week of school, they were trying to put their kids on the school bus, and there were illegals crossing the northern border who were surrounding the school bus. You have illegals, including individuals on the terrorist watch list. And the fact that that's all Kamala Harris has to say, we need policy solutions, and those solutions are Trump policies. Build the wall, end catch and release, support Border Patrol, and restore Remain in Mexico.
We're talking to Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, and as you've gathered here, of course, she's a New York Congresswoman. We're talking about what she just said, the northern border. Congresswoman, how dire is the crisis on the northern part of the country? So much of the attention has been focused on the south.
It is dire. Again, we have never seen anything like this. And I raised the alarm about this at the very beginning in the first few months of Joe Biden's administration with Kamala Harris, where we had Border Patrol officers that were transferred over and over again to the southern border. Now it's so bad on the northern border. At that point, we didn't have the resources we need that Border Patrol from the southern border has been transferred to the northern border because we've seen this 50 times increase of illegals. This is something communities in upstate New York have never seen before. And certainly at every opportunity, Kamala Harris has not supported our Border Patrol officers, which is why the Border Patrol union is supporting and has endorsed President Trump, as well as Republicans up and down the ballot across the country.
Elon Musk has been saying that this election may very well be the last one if the left gets its way because of all this effort to bring in illegal foreign nationals and to ultimately turn them into voters for Democrats permanently. What are the stakes in this election, in your view, given what we already know about the Biden-Harris administration and what's happening to this country?
The stakes, we say every 2 years that this is the most important election in our lifetime. But I'll tell you, this one really is. People know it in their guts. They know our Constitution, the American dream, who we are as a country is all on the line this election cycle. And Democrats have shown and proven that they will shred the rule of law. They will shred the Constitution. They will open our borders in a way to fundamentally change America into a country that is not based upon our founding principles and values. So this is why it's so important. Every vote is going to matter in every state and in every congressional district. I think about your listeners in Northern Virginia. We need to flip those key House seats in Virginia, supporting candidates like Derek Anderson, who has tremendous military service and is running to flip that district, and I think he will. I was in Virginia earlier this month doing a rally. There were thousands of women that came in support of President Trump, and we saw that it's possible when Virginia elected Glenn Youngkin. So every vote's going to matter this election cycle. I just want to encourage everyone, vote early in person, or in mail, absentee, legal votes. We need your legal votes cast. We need them cast to make sure that we win this election.
Yeah, for sure. And we've been out there each week with early voting in Virginia. Congresswoman, I don't know, from your perspective, you probably have a better understanding of this than I do, but it seems like the enthusiasm among Republican voters for engaging in the process and getting Trump and all these other candidates across the finish line, it's as high as I've ever seen.
I agree. We are winning the enthusiasm, but that means we need to win the turnout. This is all about turnout. And we know that Democrats in the media try to suppress Republican enthusiasm. That's why they're putting out these polls, which are not reflective. Remember, President Trump always overperforms the polls, as do Republicans. And we need to make sure that everyone turns out. But I think the enthusiasm is high no matter where I go, whether it's in Virginia, upstate New York, or I'm actually in another part of the country today. I'm at an airport. If there's any background noise, I'll be in North Carolina later this week, Pennsylvania next week. So we're crisscrossing. It's all hands on deck.
Those are essential states. All right, finally, obviously the presidential election, we talk about top of the ticket. You're also talking about these House races that are so important. I know right now we've heard plans from Democrats, including Maryland's Jamie Raskin. They're saying that if Trump wins this election, they want to stop him from becoming president on January 6th of this year. They claim that they want to raise 14th Amendment objections to him becoming president. They say he's an insurrectionist. We can't allow him to become president. Jamie Raskin has said out loud they intend to stop him on January 6th. How important is it for Republicans to win that majority again in the House in order to make sure something like that doesn't happen?
It is super important, and Democrats will impeach him on day one. And it's interesting that you bring that up, Vince, because every Republican, whether you're a national leader or running for House, has been asked about January 6th and election integrity. You know who hasn't been asked? Democrats. And Democrats have had to. Remember, they challenged every Republican president since the 1980s. Democrat members of Congress challenged them on January 6th. And yet it's only Republicans that get attacked by a biased, broken mainstream media. It is important for us to stand up for election integrity, but what have Democrats tried to do? They have tried to attack the will of the American people, going back to 2016 with Russia hoax and all that nonsense to really hinder the American people's choice for president, which was President Trump then, and it's going to be President Trump this November.
A big deal. Really big deal. A lot going on. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, thank you for taking some time out for us today. Good to talk to you.
Thanks. Bye.
That's Congresswoman Elise Stefanik from New York, dealing with the problems on the northern border and barnstorming the country right now, trying to talk to everybody about getting Republicans elected. As I mentioned with the Congresswoman Kamala Harris, she's done a number of interviews today. Among them, what was she on today? She was on 60 Minutes this week. And that was a disaster with Bill Whitaker. She was on The View earlier today. I've got some clips for you on that, which are really insane. She was on with Howard Stern today. She did a Howard Stern interview, poor Howard Stern. If you're not familiar with him, he's a kind of an angry old lesbian Democrat who is just like all in on Kamala. And, he used to have a good relationship with Trump, too, which was interesting. The two of them had a great relationship. And the reason for that, Trump was great content. That's actually the whole thing. Trump was great content. He used to go on Howard's show, and then he would answer all the questions honestly because that's who Trump is. He would just say whatever was on his mind. Howard loved it. Howard would ask him to assess various celebrities and people, and Trump would just give answers because that's who he is. Howard used to love the guy, but he's gone insane and really, really insane. I think, is he still hiding from COVID right now? He was scared to death from COVID. He didn't want to leave his house for years. It was really embarrassing. Anyway, so today, as a part of his ongoing therapy sessions, he brought in Kamala Harris. They had some conversations, and it went probably about as you expect. He was gushing about how wonderful she is. She was incomprehensible as she talked to him. Typical stuff. And what else is she doing? Oh, yeah, she's got Stephen Colbert tonight. She's also on Colbert. So as Americans are dying from Hurricane Helene, as Americans are still missing from that hurricane, and as Americans are about to be absolutely obliterated in some cases. And God willing, that's not the case. But, man, look what this Hurricane Milton is gearing up to do in Florida. She's yucking it up with Howard Stern and Stephen Colbert and The View. Good timing, Kamala campaign. Isn't it a sign of how desperate they are? You don't shift gears on your media strategy this dramatically unless your internal polling is showing some real problems. Some real problems. And we have reports today that in Wisconsin, internal polling for Democrats is not good, that Trump is ahead, according to Democrat internal polling. Anyway, Kamala Harris on The View yesterday, ahead of this conversation, Anna Navarro was raving about all of the interviews that Kamala Harris is doing this week.
You know, there's been a lot of moaning and groaning for weeks now that Kamala Harris hasn't been doing interviews, isn't doing interviews. So look, tomorrow she's doing The View Live. It is the first live interview she does since becoming the nominee. She's been here before. She's doing The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. She's doing The Howard Stern Show. She did 60 Minutes. She's doing a Univision town hall on Thursday night. She did Call Her Daddy. She did Ricky Smiley. She did...
By the way, Trump delayed the Univision interview that he was supposed to do this week because of the hurricane. He's doing it next week. But Kamala did not delay hers. She decided we'll keep doing that.
Coming, the nominee. She's been here before. She's doing The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. She's doing The Howard Stern Show. She did 60 Minutes. She's doing a Univision town hall on Thursday night. She did Call Her Daddy. She did Ricky Smiley.
Well, she didn't actually call her daddy. They don't have a relationship these days, apparently. She's not on good terms. Although her daddy, as Trump points out, is a Marxist professor. So she didn't call her daddy. She went on a show called Call Her Daddy, which is a show where you talk about sex.
She did Oprah for 2 hours. She did All the Smoke. She
Oprah.
did Dan.
It wasn't. I guess Oprah is just about as real as the rest of the interviews, but the Oprah event was literally a campaign event where they brought in all these Hollywood people who pretended they liked Kamala Harris. They summoned all of their acting skills to pretend that.
Bash on CNN. She did Stephanie Rule on MSNBC.
Stephanie Rule.
What more do you all want?
Yeah. Like a real interview. Or just clap like seals. That's the answer to that question. What more do you all want? All right, coming up. How did Kamala do on The View? It was a disaster, is the answer to that. Yeah, once again, Kamala Harris. This is going to have "I'm Donald Trump and I approve this message" at the end of it.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. There's not a thing that comes to mind. I've been a part of all the most impactful moments. Yeah, she wouldn't change the border crisis that she stimulated. She wouldn't change the fact that people have become poorer on their watch at their behest, at her votes. She wouldn't change the withdrawal from Afghanistan, killed 13 Americans, wounded so many more. She wouldn't change any of that. Not a single thing she would change. There's no difference between her and Joe Biden. They're the same, one and the same, Kamala Harris declares. I swear to you, this is a Trump campaign ad. What are they doing? She is awful at this. Her priority, her mission is to establish that she's a different person, completely disconnected from Joe, and try and pull the wool over the voters' eyes. She can't do it. She can't even manage it. Sonny Austin tries to dig deeper. What would be the biggest difference between you and Joe?
What do you think would be the biggest specific difference between your presidency and a Biden presidency?
I would be a girl boss.
Well, we're obviously two different people. And
What is this answer? We're obviously two different people. Oh, that's a good place to start.
have a lot of shared life experiences. For example, the way we feel about our family and our parents and so on. But we're also different people, and I will bring those sensibilities to how I lead.
What makes you different? Well, we're different people, and we have a lot in common. What? Did you hear the words that just came out of the mouth of the lady who asked you that question? Do you speak English? What is even happening here? Alyssa Farah says, voters think Joe Biden dragged his feet, that the Biden administration dragged their feet before addressing the border. If they think that, they're wrong. The Biden administration didn't drag its feet. The Biden administration kicked open the border. Their feet were kicking open the border.
There remains this perception among voters that the Biden administration dragged its feet and waited too long to act to address the border crisis.
The premise is wrong. That's a stupid question.
Can you speak to why voters may feel that way?
Sure. Well, first of all, to your point, when we first came in office, hours after we were inaugurated, the first bill we offered, before infrastructure, before bringing down the cost of prescription medications, it was to fix our broken immigration system. And it never got taken up, in large part for political reasons, because solutions are at hand, and we need to fix the problem.
Yeah, they were pushing amnesty from day one. They wanted goodies for illegals. That was the plan. And then they gave them a lot. That's why we have millions more people in the country. Joy Behar jumps in here, and she says, remember, she wore blackface, and she says, I can't understand why anybody would vote for Trump.
People are saying this could be the closest election in a century.
Yeah.
I personally cannot understand why anyone would vote for him. A lot of it is, I think, he's getting bad information. People are getting bad information from other channels. But do you have an explanation?
You mean good information?
For this at all?
Well, let me just add to your list. I mean...
We don't listen. It's only an hour's show.
Including, he has said he would terminate the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah.
She's a lawyer. Just ask her what the articles of the Constitution are. Just ask her some basic questions. Recite the preamble, would you? She can't do it. She claims she owns a Glock. She doesn't know which direction to point the thing. It's 429. Hey, good afternoon to you. 435 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Steve Moore talks the economy with us today at 5 o'clock. He's got a new book out, The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Some unfortunate economic news to share with you now. Our in-house economist, E.J. Antoni, pointing out today, the federal debt has now hit yet another record high, $35.683 trillion. And Kamala Harris's plan is to spend a lot more money. And even on 60 Minutes, they were asking her, well, how are you going to pay for it? She said, the billionaires are going to pay higher taxes, which means the cost of everything is going to go up for you again. So don't elect her again. How about that? Fire her. She does not deserve a promotion. She deserves to be fired. It's the whole story of the Biden administration. They never fire anybody. Now's your chance. Fire them all. Fire them all. Kamala Harris was on The View today. She thought that she'd get a warm reception there, and she did. They loved her. They were treating her great. Joy Behar was saying, I can't believe anybody would vote for Trump. How is this even possible? They must be getting bad information if they think Trump is good. No, they're getting the truth. They're remembering what it was like under President Trump's administration. Let me play some more for you here. Hurricane Milton is coming towards the country right now. Hurricane Helene already hit the country, savaged it. The Biden-Harris administration has been abysmal in its response to the first hurricane. How are they going to do with the second one? We'll see. Here's Kamala Harris today talking about criticizing the federal government.
It's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness. Yeah. So lives are literally at stake right now. I traveled to Georgia.
It's the height of irresponsibility to scrutinize your government. No, actually, it's your obligation to scrutinize your government.
And to North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. In Georgia, I met a woman who, just days earlier, her husband was killed in their home by a fallen tree.
Yeah.
Days later, I met with her and her daughter.
Days later.
You can imagine the pain, the shock that they are still in about what they experienced, what they witnessed. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about real human beings and their lives and them losing everything. Everything. This woman lost her husband. Her child lost her father. People are losing their home with no hope.
What is the plan here? She just she just declares things that actually happened, or maybe didn't, but let's assume for the sake of argument that these things happened. The plan is, if I just say these things happened, then you'll vote for me? Did you hear, even in her response there, well, it took me days to finally get there, but when I did, I found out that this woman's life was a tragedy.
Of ever being able to reconstruct or return. Yeah. And the idea that somebody would be playing political games for the sake of himself, but this is so consistent about Donald Trump. He puts himself before the needs of others. I fear that he really lacks empathy.
Donald Trump was one of the first people of any status, any figure in the United States, to show up into the disaster zone, and he brought supplies with him. He brought relief goods with him. He brought fuel, water, all sorts of things to help the people of a devastated area of the country. It wouldn't be until days later that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris even showed their faces there. And Kamala is accusing him of political expedience when she's making fake phone calls to Ron DeSantis like she's going to have anything to do with a hurricane response.
On a very basic level, to care about the suffering of other people and then understand the role of a leader is not to beat people down, it's to lift people up.
It's a stupid focus group talking point that she repeats all the time.
Absolutely.
Especially in a time of crisis.
Clap, 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 clap. Also, Kamala Harris was talking about... So Kamala Harris gave this answer today on Ron DeSantis because yesterday, as I was pointing out to you, Kamala tried to place a phone call to someone in Ron DeSantis' orbit, supposedly. Maybe she just called a random Florida area code and was hoping DeSantis would be available. And she wants to talk to the governor. She wants to be able to say, I talked to the governor. I'm here to promise all the help that we can possibly give in the Biden-Harris administration. She wants to be seen as doing something for once. And meanwhile, DeSantis has been out there saying, what is she doing? I never talked to the vice president. I've dealt with this with multiple administrations. I never have to deal with the vice president. She's only doing this because her campaign is failing. She wants to make it look like she's doing something. Here's what Kamala Harris said today.
Now, he said this morning, you've never called regarding any of the storms Florida has had since you've been vice president until apparently now, and called it political. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, I have called and talked with, in the course of this crisis, this most recent crisis, Democrat and Republican governors. Called, taken the call, answered the call, had a conversation. So, obviously, this is not an issue that is about partisanship or politics for certain leaders, but maybe is for others.
Yeah, maybe it is for others. Joe Biden said today that he's got a great relationship with Ron DeSantis. Everything's going smoothly, and it's perfect. He's really happy with the governor and his response. So he's just crapping all over Kamala Harris's political stunts today. Joe Biden's doing that. Kamala, she was also asked about how the coup took place. How did you replace Joe? How did that happen? Joe got all the votes. How did you end up with the nomination?
I went to work out, and I had on cooking shows, and they were asking me, Auntie, what's that ingredient? What's that ingredient? And they're playing while I'm working out. Make breakfast. We sit down. We're having breakfast.
What do normal people do? Do they cook? Is that a thing? Yeah, they cook, Kamala. Okay. All right, I'll talk about cooking. What else do they do? They work out. Oh, they work out? Okay. So here's Kamala Harris inventing a story about how she found out that she was going to become the nominee.
They were asking me, Auntie, what's that ingredient? What's that ingredient? And they're playing while I'm working out. make breakfast. We sit down, we're having breakfast, and we'd been working on a puzzle. So they wanted more bacon, got more bacon. You know how it goes. Yeah. And so then we had a puzzle, so we went back up to work on the puzzle. I'm still in my workout clothes.
Right.
And we're working on the puzzle, and the phone rings.
Right.
So I said, Auntie will be right back. And it was the president, and he told me his decision. And I'll tell you, the first thing I asked him is, are you sure? Because
Me? Maybe she had a moment of self-awareness. Are you sure about this? This might not be a good idea.
what a big decision.
Yeah.
And historic.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked for a while. Meanwhile, I went back into the room where the girls were, and I'm like,
The bacon was all burned.
go get your father. Because I knew he'd be up somewhere. And so we laughed
Just smacking some woman around.
afterwards. Nick is their father. We laughed that Amara, the elder one, was kind of like Paul Revere, and Leela, the younger one, was Paul Revere's horse.
Oh, these are her nieces, so it was some other father, not Doug. Doug was not a part of that story, I guess. He was out smacking some woman around, I guess. Kamala Harris, that was The View, and then she went on to Howard Stern's show today. And I'm seeing some reviews here. Apparently, The View was tougher on her than Howard Stern was. Is that true? Do you think that's right, Corey? Corey's gone through all this audio. Okay. So Howard Stern was even more light touch than Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar today. Here's Howard Stern, was once known as one of the great interviewers. Now what is he doing?
As you've said, sort of running for office, even when you ran, as a DA or Attorney General, it was like you said, I don't like talking about myself. Yeah. It feels I was raised not to be a narcissist. And here the other guy is so only talking about himself. Yeah. But it's weird. It's odd for you to talk about your accomplishments and sort of congratulate yourself.
It's weird. No, how about this? We'll give her a pass just this once. Give me an accomplishment. Tell me, what's your favorite accomplishment, Kamala? What's the thing that you've done that you're so proud of that you want to share with the rest of us? And it's okay. Don't feel embarrassment about it. Don't worry. Just tell us, what's your accomplishment?
I just have always, again, you're right. I was raised this way. It's not about you. It's about what you do. Right. And so it is. It feels immodest to me to talk about myself.
She's just so humble, you said. She's really, she's got a lot of great accomplishments, but she feels like she can't really tell you about them because she's so modest, you say.
Apparently I'm doing right now.
Right. But you have to, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is it. You're running for office.
And a friend of mine actually said, look, this is not a time to worry about modesty because this is, obviously you got to let people know who you are.
Yeah. All right. So tell us again, one accomplishment. Has Kamala Harris ever achieved anything? She did do that one interview where she said that she would lop off the genitals of illegal aliens. Remember that? She said, I'll do sex changes for all the, what are the undocumenteds who are in detention. She's like, we need to give them sex changes. And when I first heard that, I was like, oh, that's an interesting border security measure. You're gonna mutilate people who cross our border? That's tough, but it might work. No, that's not what she meant. She meant that this would be a gift to them, that American taxpayers would fund this to happen to illegal aliens. That's demented. And by the way, it turns off voters like so much. You can tell because the Trump campaign is running that clip over and over and over in all of their ads. Did you watch any football this Sunday or Saturday? Did you watch any of it? There's Trump ads running over and over how Kamala Harris was pushing sex change operations on illegal aliens. And she thought this would be a great idea. People are so turned off by this. Even the guys over at the Breakfast Club, they were like, what? She was pushing sex changes on illegal aliens? That's crazy. And they support her. They think that's nuts because it is. Howard Stern apparently asked her about the fact that she doesn't nap because she's so tireless.
When you said you don't nap, I get it because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, like when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country. even when I watch them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you, I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of. There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now. I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's.
This is some of the saddest crap we've ever played on this radio show. Ever. This is pathetic.
Literally on the line.
I agree with you.
And when I see them, how did you react to the Saturday Night Live bit?
Well, I just saw it, actually, and it was funny. I am a huge fan of Maya Rudolph's. I think she put a lot of time into doing the piece and the character.
She hates it. She hates it. Because Maya Rudolph probably approximated something that Kamala Harris knows about herself but doesn't really want to emphasize. She hates it. You could tell. She's like, oh, yeah, I'm a big fan. You know, she put a lot of work into it. She's all bitter about it. And SNL's going out of its way to, I mean, yes, they're making fun of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz a little. But they're rooting for her. They're doing everything they can to put some spin on the ball to be like, hey, you know who's really crazy? It's that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. When, of course, they're the most sober candidates in this race. Tim Walz is a spaz. That guy's crazy. He was over, where was he last night? Oh, Jimmy Kimmel. He was on the Jimmy Kimmel show. That was gross, too. All these people debasing themselves to try and get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz elected. Ugh.
But to your point, I literally lose sleep and have been over what is at stake in this election. I mean, honestly, I end the day pretty much every day these days asking myself, what can I do more?
Yeah, you know, if I sleep, Americans may be able to express themselves on social media. Can you imagine? If I go to sleep, democracy might be fulfilled. I can't allow that to happen. Think about how many of my political opponents will go free if I sleep. I've got to stay awake. I've got too much arresting to do.
Yeah. And what can you do?
I mean, so high.
You're going out. You're coming here. You went on The View this morning.
Yeah.
You're going to the shows. You did 60 Minutes.
What more could you do? You went on The View and you went on Howard Stern. 60 Minutes, Howard Stern asked about 60 Minutes and pointed out that Trump decided not to do it. Trump decided, I'm not doing this crap anymore. And it's hard to blame him after all the hit jobs 60 Minutes has arranged on Donald Trump, including Leslie Stahl insisting that Hunter Biden's laptop wasn't real. There's no proof of that, remember? There's no proof of that. Hunter Biden's laptop? Trump's like, there's tons of proof. It's his laptop. It's his laptop, and it was covered up. Here's Howard Stern.
You're coming here. You went on The View this morning.
Yeah.
You're going to the shows. You did 60 Minutes. By the way, I thought what was so amazing about 60 Minutes is the fact that Trump turned it down.
Yeah.
I mean, it just says so much. He didn't want to be fact-checked. This is maddening.
He has dignity. He doesn't want to be lied about anymore. It's not maddening at all.
This is insanity. What do you mean you don't want to be fact-checked?
I think that, Howard, people ask me,
what are they asking?
What do you think is going on, and what is the tension here? What's at stake? And there are many things, and I can be much more articulate than what I'm going to say. But
yes, I know
ultimately, I do believe that this is an election that is about strength versus weakness.
That's true.
Yeah.
And weakness as projected by someone who puts herself in front of the American people and does not have the strength to stand.
She's up talking. You hear it? Up talking. What do they say up talking is a sign of? It's typically insecurity that you've got trouble. You don't actually believe in what you're saying. You're freestyling here, but you realize that there's very little support for what you're saying.
By someone who puts himself in front of the American people and does not have the strength to stand in defense of their needs.
Oh, don't give me a presidency of all up talk. Please, please, please. Spare us that. Just the whole time.
Their dreams, their desires, the work that must happen to make sure that we are a secure nation, that we are nurturing and protecting our alliances around the world, that we are supporting America's military, that we are fighting to bring the cost of living down for working families, that we are building businesses, building growth.
Driving the country into the ground, starting new wars, opening the borders, overflowing the country with illegals, costing you a lot of money. To the phones we go. Dustin is calling in from Winchester on line 4. Dustin, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Vinny, how are you?
I'm good, Dustin.
I just wanted to say, whatever happened to Howard Stern? Here's somebody who built his career as a pioneer for free speech and his battles with the FCC.
Yeah.
And now he's become some feckless, washed-up DJ spreading socialist propaganda.
Yeah, a little lick-spittle servant to power. And there he is doing it today.
Her patriotic speech is like her relieving herself on the grave of every person who fought for freedom in this country.
Well, she said today she walks in lockstep with Joe Biden. She wouldn't change a thing, which comes as yet another insult to the families of the 13 fallen in Afghanistan out of Kamala Harris's mouth today. This election, don't you think this election needs to get over with already? And Kamala Harris needs to lose? How many times, Corey, boy, I wish it was over already. No, it continues, and we'll keep covering it. Coming up, Steve Moore joins us. We'll talk about the state of the economy.